When I reflect on the 2022-2023 season for the New Jersey Devils, one of the games that sticks out is Game 82 against the Washington Capitals. That was the game in which Luke Hughes got the game-winning goal in OT that clinched 52 wins for the Devils and thus broke a franchise record. So the Caps and Devils gave some memorable battles last season, but how are the Capitals looking going into the 2023-2024 season? I have a special guest appearing on today's episode of Locked On Devils. It is Tarik El-Bashir. He is a rinkside reporter for TNT. He also is a correspondent on NHL Network, and he's also a journalist for The Athletic. There's a lot to break down with Tarik in today's episode. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential MIA member Trey Matthews. Once again, we are looking at the New Jersey Devils as divisional rivals and see how the Metro is shaking up. Next up on the docket are the Washington Capitals, and joining me on today's show is a reporter for The Athletic, a rinkside reporter for TNT, and a correspondent on NHL Network. It's Tarik El-Bashir. So, Tarik, you've built up quite the resume and track history for yourself. Thanks for stopping by to talk all things Caps.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Trey.
So my first question for you is, for anyone who did not follow the Capitals religiously, just paint a picture of their 2022-2023 season. What went right? What didn't go right? I just want to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, if I were going to boil it down to one word, I would say injuries. Every team has guys get banged up and lose. Key players are missing for a week or two at a time. What happened to the Capitals last year? I've covered this team since the year before Ovi got here, and I've never, ever seen a team go through the type of injuries that they had last year. Nicholas Backstrom missed the first half of the season. Tom Wilson missed the first half of the season. He came back, played pretty well, and then went right back out with an ankle fracture. Darcy Kemper missed an important month. Marty Farivari was out. And of course, the big one, John Carlson, takes a 90-mile-an-hour slap shot to his head right before Christmas in the game where Ovi got his big milestone, and he was out for a long time, almost until the end of the season. I mean, in my opinion, any team loses their number one defenseman for that long, it's going to be really tough to make the playoffs, especially in a division that's as difficult as the Metro. Again, I'm not a kind of guy who blames things on injuries, but they were third in man games lost. And if you look at the guys they were missing, they weren't missing fourth line guys. They were missing star players. They're getting up there in age. That said, it looks like they're going to come back healthy this year. They've got a new energetic coach in Spencer Carberry. I thought Peter Laviolette did a good job, but there's a reason that NHL coaches have the shortest shelf life in pro sports. They get tuned out, right? It's time for a new voice. Spencer Carberry has got a lot of energy. He brought on a staff that's got new ideas. Kirk Muller, Mitch Love. I know you didn't ask me about next year, but let me just throw out a little teaser here. I'm bullish on the Capitals.
You are?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that. That's actually in my itinerary of questions, which is talking about your expectations going into the new year. So basically, what was like the lowest point for the Capitals? Like, when did you realize like this team is not going to make the playoffs?
I would say right around the trade deadline when general manager Brian McClellan had to make some difficult decisions, right? This is a team that you could see they were going to struggle to make the playoffs. They were right there around 8-9, but you could tell at that moment that this team, even if they got in, they were going to get housed in the first round. They just didn't have it. And so they traded away 5 important veterans on expiring contracts, the biggest of which was Dmitry Orlov, but, Garnet Hathaway, Marcus Johansson, Lars Eller. I mean, they traded away some pretty important pieces of this team. And you could just kind of feel the air get sucked out of the room when that happened because, it's a veteran team. They all looked around and said, okay, well, I guess that's it. They still hung around for a couple more weeks because, they're a proud team with some good players and had a good coaching staff. They were able to hang in there. But then there was also a game in Pittsburgh that they lost late on a bad Anthony Mantha turnover that really kind of put the knife in them. But I feel like for me, the low point was that week window right around the playoffs when McClellan, I think in retrospect, made the tough but right decision to start flipping some of his veterans on expiring contracts for Rasmus Sandin and some draft picks.
So the Capitals finished the year with a record of 35, 37, and 10. They had 80 points total. But I want to go back. What were your expectations going into the season? Because my expectations for the Capitals was that Alexander Ovechkin was going to do his thing. And obviously at this point is to see which milestone is he going to break next in the short amount of time he has left, because Father Time is undefeated for a reason. But my thing was my only hope for the Capitals, for the Devils to surpass them, is the Devils are much younger and the Capitals are getting older. So I was like, I think the Devils can surpass the Penguins, they can surpass the Capitals, and they can surpass the Islanders because they're getting older. So I want to hear your expectations going into the 2022-2023 year. Where did you see this team going?
I thought they were a team that was going to be in the fight for a playoff position. I think that, some of the injury problems that they had, I mean, we knew about those going into the season. We knew Tom Wilson was going to be out until January. We knew Nicholas Backstrom was going to be out until January. That said, I still thought they would be hanging around and might find their way into the playoffs. And then after that, remember they went on that crazy run in December where they were quite literally the best team in the league for an entire calendar month. Then I was like, do I need to readjust my my thinking on this team? And then came January and February, and it was like, okay, well, they've more than regressed to the mean. They've kind of taken 2 or 3 steps backwards. And but yeah, I mean, my thought going in, I mean, they had made the playoffs in 8 straight years. They were going to do it a 9th year, in my opinion. And then by the time February rolled around, I was like, yeah, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, so one of the major offseason moves that the Capitals made during the 2022 offseason was, in fact, trading Vitek Vanecek on the second day of the draft, I believe, to the Devils. And in exchange, the Devils gave up a couple of draft picks. I want to get your stance on Vitek Vanecek real quick, because so far a lot of Devils fans are iffy on him, because on the one hand, he became the first Devils goalie since Martin Brodeur to eclipse 30-plus wins. But on the other hand, he crashed and burned in the playoffs. And in fact, it's something I talked about on my show, which is, seems like Vanecek is a very good regular season player, but come the playoffs, things just don't really go his way. And unfortunately, I thought that's why the Capitals sort of gave up on him. So I want to hear your honest opinions on Vitek.
I'll tell you, I love his story. I love a grinder. And he is a quintessential grinder. I mean, he was in the minors forever, and the Caps kept recruiting over him. They kept bringing in higher draft picks and signing free agents, and he just kept going, oh, okay, I guess I got to work harder. Oh, they did it again. I guess I got to work harder. And he just kept working and kept working and kept working, and finally made it to the Capitals. And once he got there, they were like, oh, you know what? He's pretty good, and they kept him around. I don't know if he has enough track record in the postseason yet to say he's a player who can't handle pressure or isn't a good playoff goaltender. I think league-wide goaltending is starting to go towards players with prodigious size, right? Guys like Darcy Kemper, who was 6'5" and 200 some odd pounds. Vitek's not that big, he's not a plus size goaltender. I think the Capitals kind of started looking around a little bit, and they were like, well, if all these 6'4" and 6'5" guys are having success, our guy is 6 foot, or I'm not sure what they list him at, but I'm going to call him 6 foot 6'1". They started going, we got to start looking to make a change. I think he's got really good technique. I think he's very in control. I do wonder how high his ceiling is. That said, again, to me, goaltending is like defense. I mean, those are kind of positions where a lot of experience can go a long way. And even though he's not young anymore, in terms of NHL experience, I think another season we'll be able to kind of write the book on Vitek. I think he can be really good. My concerns are the same one that everyone in the league has about him, which is size and track record. That said, I think the Devils are a really good team. And they might be able to outscore some of their problems. They might be able to protect him a little bit. I'm not saying he can't do it. I just need to see a little bit more.
Don't worry, there's still more in store with Tarik. But before we continue, I want to tell you guys about FanDuel because I want you guys to make some extra money. So football season is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you could get a bonus bets every time when they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over and unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sports book. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right, let's get back to our conversation with Tarik. Take it away once again. Yeah, so I think for Vitek, I think his ceiling is still relatively high. Obviously, the Devils are not in that position without his services. That's the thing. So it's just like
he had some really hot months, didn't he? Didn't he have a couple of months where he was like one of the best goalies in the league, or like a top 10 guy for a while there?
No, he was.
Early on, yeah.
He in fact was, and like I said, he is the first Devils goalie since Martin Brodeur to get 30 or more wins. I know the playoffs were
crazy to hear.
Yeah, I think Marty did it in 2012, 2013, somewhere in that time frame. But it's been a while, and the Devils have just been doing these musical chairs with goalies. So there was the Corey Schneider era, and it got off to a really good start, but crashed and burned towards the end. Then like a couple years ago, you get people like Aaron Dell or the Hamburglar. See, I can't even name them off the top of my head. They've just been it's just like it was just
a revolving door, yeah.
But now you finally get Vitek, you get Akira. That's actually a decent duo. Is it the best in the league? No, but they still have a very bright future, and that's my. And that's my thing. I think Vitek is still the go-to guy for the Devils. And if he doesn't have another good playoff performance, then you start to have those discussions. But when I see Devils fans or basically people just putting out these outlandish trade packages for Connor Hellebuck, I'm just like, you're going to go all out for a possible rental because Connor Hellebuck, more likely than not, is going to get paid like a lot because he's one of the best goalies in this generation. And unfortunately, I don't think the Devils will be able to afford him. So the window is just opening for the Devils, in the words of Tom Fitzgerald. So I have full faith in Vitek, and I just want to thank the Capitals organization for giving the Devils this beautiful gift because I still think he can definitely be a very solid goalie for the Devils, and I think he still has a few tricks up his sleeve.
I want to see some more consistency. Like I mentioned a minute ago, he had some really good stretches. I also saw a few games, on the tube where he looked a little shaky. So, let's see him put together a full 7-month season before we crown him. But I mean, I do think that there is some more upside there. It'll be interesting to see if the Devils' other components can play up to where we think they can play, because I think the goaltending will be good enough.
while we're still on the subject of goalies, a goalie that I was actually quite fond of during the 2022 offseason was, in fact, Darcy Kuemper, who had just won a Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche. And a lot of people have, I'd say, mixed emotions about Kuemper because they were like, he was just blessed with a very good defense. He's not all that good. Well, with the Capitals, he had a record of 22, 26, and 7. He had a goals against average of 2.87 and a save percentage of .909. So I basically want to get your thoughts because Kuemper did sign a 5-year deal with the Capitals. So is Darcy Kuemper the Capitals' go-to guy? Like, do you have faith in him to help this organization out?
Absolutely. I think last year, in so many ways, Trey, last year was just kind of an aberration for this team, in my opinion. I mean, the injuries, the hollowing out of the roster at the deadline. I mean, everything that happened after the trade deadline. I mean, you can almost throw those numbers away, right? I mean, like I said, it just sucked the air out of the room. It sucked some of the will out of some of the players. I mean, it just was a very empty feeling. It was a very foreign feeling for this team too. This team had been so good and so consistent for so many years, and to see a team get kind of dismantled at the trade deadline, there was a lot of kind of like shock, kind of like what's going on here? We haven't dealt with this before. And then, they were already kind of going in the wrong direction, and that kind of accelerated their demise. From what I saw of Kuemper last year, with a team that's not totally decimated by injuries, he's still a guy who can throw up a .920 save percentage and a 2.5 goals against and win 35 plus games. I certainly think he can do it. He's got to get the help, right? He also got some of the worst run support of any goaltender in the league. So the Capitals didn't score a whole lot for him. They scored a lot for Charlie Lindgren, the backup. They didn't score a whole lot for him. So, those are some of the numbers that I think, the evaluators look at as well. I think just in general, I'm looking for a bounce back season from the veterans. And I think Kuemper is one of those guys.
All right, let's fast forward from the 2022 offseason to the 2023 offseason. So one of the major storylines was the Capitals re-signing Tom Wilson to a 7-year extension. You got Max Pacioretty, a 2020 All-Star. I want to get your thoughts on this offseason.
Joel Edmondson, defenseman.
Joel Edmondson as well. I want to get your thoughts on the offseason for the Capitals. What would you rate it? Are you satisfied with it? Is this going to help their organization? Here's your thoughts.
Yeah, I thought they were going to do more. I think they wanted to do more, Trey. I think they wanted to shake up the top 6 forward group a little bit more, but they're at the point in their OV era trajectory where they've got a lot of players on big contracts with no movement clauses and limited no trade clauses. And those are hard to move these days, unless you really want to, do more than a nip and tuck or a shake up, but you really want to like blow things up. And they aren't at that point yet. Then they're not going to blow this team up as long as Alex Ovechkin's on this team. They made those assurances to him when he signed his most recent extension that they're going to keep this team. They're going to keep good players around him. So they're limited by what they've promised some of their star players. Ovi, one of them, but they're also limited by what they can do because of the salary cap. Again, going up very much. They're a cap team, and they've got guys on contracts that are hard to move. I think, in my opinion, their offseason was actually what they did at the trade deadline. I thought McClellan did very well to get Rasmus Sandin, pry him away from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and to also get some draft capital that at some point he's going to be able to, he obviously just drafted some players in his recent draft, but he also stockpiled some picks and backfilled some picks that he had traded away in previous years. So he'll be able to kind of restock those cupboards a little bit going forward. Pacioretty was an interesting signing. He has a Achilles tendon that he's torn twice. He's not going to be ready for the start of camp. It's unclear when exactly he's going to be ready. Interesting contract structure: $2 million in salary, $2 million in easily achieved bonuses, which tells me The Caps are also a little concerned about how much he's going to be able to play. But you know what? When Pacioretty, I know he's an older guy, but he's been good into his 30s. If he can come back from this injury, I mean, you're talking about a legit top 6 player. And maybe taking all this time off, maybe he's a little fresher. He's going to come into the season, let's say in November, when other guys have already gone through 15, 16 games. Joel Edmondson is a big, tough defenseman. He had some back injuries in Montreal. The Capitals were able to trade for him. He's going to bring some snarl to the back end that maybe they lost a little bit of that physicality with Dmitry Orlov being traded away. It's hard for me to put a grade on the offseason, but I will say I did think going in they were going to do a little bit more, but now that I've talked to people with the organization, I kind of understand why they didn't. They tried, they wanted to, but you're not going to trade a legit top 6 forward because you're mad at him and get back a 4th rounder and a Met prospect, right? That's not asset management. If you can't find the deal you want now, then you can make a deal later. And remember, Trey, people look at the offseason and roster building as everything that happens, around the draft and at free agency. General managers look at it as all the way up until the trade deadline. So, there weren't any big moves made this summer, but let's say a team has a major injury, a team that fancies itself as a contender has a major injury in training camp or in October. Now, all of a sudden, that deal you might have had a quick conversation with at the draft, now there's a little pressure on that other general manager to get something done. And now, all of a sudden, the conversations get going again. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there are some they're looking at making some moves, through that first half of the season as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love Tom Fitzgerald, the general manager for the Devils. I think he made all the right moves during the offseason. The main point of emphasis for Fitzgerald was to retain a lot of players, including Jesper Bratt, Timo Meyer, some of your
players
depth pieces like Eric Haula, Michael McLeod, Nathan Bastian. So players that play on the bottom 6 but still play a huge role on the team. So, and obviously, we could talk about Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, Dougie Hamilton, the star players for the Devils. But the one thing Fitzgerald really cracked down on when I talked to him during one of his press conferences was that he wants to have one of the best top 9 in the entire NHL. And one thing that I was really impressed with was that he traded away a pending restricted free agent in Yegor Sharangovich to the Calgary Flames in exchange for Tyler Toffoli, who just had a career year with Calgary. So, yeah, I totally get you, which is like general managers like Fitzgerald, they're looking at the big picture. And Ray Shero, he laid down the foundation for the Devils. But at the same time, Fitzgerald was able to take it to new heights. So that's my thing. I'm really happy with what the Devils have become. And obviously with the Capitals, a little bit different, an older team, but obviously you guys have won the Capitals won a Stanley Cup just a few years ago. So you definitely know what it takes to like build a Stanley Cup contending team. And it also helps when you have one of the best hockey players to ever graze the earth in Alex Ovechkin. But let's talk about your expectations. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, what are your expectations for the Capitals going into the 2023-2024 season? I'm a little concerned with their age, but middle of the pack kind of team. So you got the Islanders, you got the Penguins. Can the Capitals get back into the playoffs and surpass the Islanders and possibly the Penguins? I know the Penguins got Erik Karlsson, but they did not exactly solve their issues in terms of age, and their goaltending tandem really concerns me.
Yeah, I'm with you on all points there. I mean, when I look at the Metro, I look at the Devils, Carolina, New York Rangers. Those are probably the 3 teams to beat, right? I mean, on paper, they look like those are the top guys. Devils, Rangers, Devils and Rangers in Carolina. I feel like those 3 are going to be battling for the division title. After that, it's kind of a free-for-all. I know Pittsburgh got Erik Karlsson, and everyone's going to be, riding that bandwagon at the start of the season. He's He's definitely a fun player. He's him and Chris Letang. It's going to be interesting to see how they divvy up the power play time there. They're going to be a more fun team to watch. But Trey, getting back to what I was saying, at the start, I know a lot of people think that Father Time has, if last year he was knocking on the door, he's kind of kicked the door in this year. I'm telling you, these are some proud guys, man. I've seen Nicholas Backstrom. He's been training hard this summer. He looks like he's in great shape. I saw TJ Oshie at a golf tournament a couple of days ago. He looks great. He's hungry. Alex Ovechkin, same deal. These guys all got back into town and have been skating together for several weeks. Kind of speaks to their dedication and kind of their mindset. The fact they're all here already training together. But I think the Capitals' biggest offseason addition is going to be Spencer Carberry, the coach. He was in the system. He came up through South Carolina. Then he was the Hershey coach. So he's already got that built-in rapport with some of the young players they're trying to integrate into the lineup, like a Connor McMichael. He coached him in Hershey. So there's already that built-in relationship there. But then Spencer went to Toronto and ran that ridiculously good power play. I know it had some great players. The Capitals still have some good players, and that power play has to get better. I think he's going to come back and he's going to reimagine that power play. But more importantly, there's just going to be this youthful energy from the coaching staff. I think guys are going to want to prove themselves to the new coaches. Everything's going to be a little more up tempo and upbeat. And I think if they get off to a strong start, there's a team that can hang around right until the end.
Yeah. So Carberry was actually something I wanted to mention because I know he has head coaching experience before, but in terms of the NHL, this is his first time being the head coach. I believe his last gig in the NHL was that he was an assistant coach for the Toronto Maple Leafs during the 2021-2022 season. So he has some NHL experience.
And last year.
But
he came from Toronto.
But at the same time, it's just like he's a rookie head coach at the NHL level. So
they also hired Kirk Muller to kind of be a sounding board. A guy who played a long time in the league, has been a head coach, has been an associate head coach, has been an assistant head coach. He'll have plenty of support around him. And remember, it's not like he's a young coach with little experience taking over a team that needs to be guided. He's taking over a team that's led by 35-year-olds who've been in the league for 15 years. I don't think experience is going to be something that's going to hold him back. I think it's going to be quite the opposite. I think he's going to bring some of that energy that maybe was lacking last year, and I think that's going to kind of trickle down into the room.
Hey, Devils fans, you remember Kirk Muller, legend right there. So just had to mention that. Now let's transition from strictly the Capitals to the head-to-head matchup, Capitals and Devils. Now we talked about this prior to the recording, but during the 2022-2023 season, the Devils beat the Capitals in 3 of their 4 matchups. 2 of those matchups resulted in overtime wins for the Devils, one of which was a shootout win. Of the 3 victories, 2 of them were on the road in Washington, and their second matchup against the Caps during the season at home in Newark resulted in a commanding 5-1 victory. And I'd say the final game of the year against the Caps, that was probably one of the biggest games of the season for the Devils, because once again, it goes into overtime. Luke Hughes has a wraparound goal in OT, his first career NHL goal, and his brother Jack got the assist. You couldn't have scripted it any better.
It's pretty cool.
But just to add more to it, obviously the Devils won that game. That was game 82 of the regular season, and that gave them 52 wins, which was a franchise record. So Luke Hughes' first career NHL goal, clinching the franchise record for most wins. Jack Hughes helping out his brother with his first career goal. Honestly, it feels like it's a scripted movie in some sort. So
that was a crazy overtime session too.
It was.
I was downstairs watching that. I had left the upstairs press box. I was downstairs, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is crazy."
And also, that was Mackenzie Blackwood's final game as a Devil, because he initially got the start, but he saw like 11 shots and 4 of them went past him. So
that's right.
In comes Akira Schmidt to save the day, and nothing got past him. Devils amount a miraculous comeback, And that was basically Lindy Ruff's sign saying, like, Mackenzie Blackwood could not play during the playoffs. So Akira Schmid got promoted to the backup role. And then obviously he got promoted to the starting role in round one. So that game just had so many crazy storylines. I remember it vividly. It was so exciting to watch. I think Curtis Lazar got into it with someone. But anyway, I want to get your thoughts on the Devils. Like, what did you notice every time the Caps played the Devils?
Fast. And, for an older team, I felt like there were times where the Capitals just looked older and slower. And it wasn't just that the Devils' legs move fast. Like, they play the game fast. They kind of turn the puck the other direction fast. Their transition is quick. And that's the direction this game is going. And that's why I think they are poised to take that next step. There are only a handful of teams, I think, in the league, and maybe even one other in the division that can skate with them. And they got star power now, right? I mean, they have some young guys, led by Hughes, Jack, I'm talking about, and eventually Luke, that are, I mean, like, we're looking at guys who are about to become superstars. Like, they're on that verge, like, they're stars, but they're about to become superstars. I really do think this Devils team, if they can figure out the goaltending situation and these young guys kind of take that next step, and I think they're going to take that next step this year. I'm not saying they're Stanley Cup contenders just yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if they made a run. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they've got all the right pieces. Lindy Ruff knows what he's doing. I personally enjoy watching them. I mean, like when the Capitals aren't playing and I'm at home and I'm flipping around and I see the Devils are playing, I stop and I watch because they're just fun. They're fun and they're fast, and I love speed.
So I got to ask you this because I know you are a PHWA member.
Yep.
What's it going to take for Jack Hughes to win the Hart someday? Because I said, like,
whoa, can you hold on a second? I think I got to look at my. I've cast so many ballots over my years. I think I voted. I think I gave him a vote. So I wish I could find my ballot on my phone. I wasn't able to find it.
All I can tell you was he was not a finalist. That's all I can tell you. He was not a finalist.
I'm pretty sure he was in my top 5. Just because I enjoy watching him play, and as he's gotten stronger and more comfortable, kind of dealing with the physicality of the NHL. It's been really cool to kind of watch him kind of come of age here. If he can stay healthy, I mean, he's going to be a sick player. I mean, he's definitely one. Like I said, I'm not covering the Caps. When I'm at home, I'm watching Jack Hughes because he does some stuff that in my opinion, makes him a top 5, top 7 player in the league, forward in the league.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what the future holds for the Devils. Now, I'm going to ask for your early season prediction. So the Devils and Capitals will play one another 4 times. They'll first play each other on October 25th, then November 10th. They'll play January 3rd, 2024, and then February 20th. So I gotta ask you, going against the Capitals once again, Devils head-to-head, who do you think will win in that regard?
I'm gonna go 2-2. And the reason I say that is I think the Capitals are going to be a better team than they were last year. I still think the Devils are going to be, a top team. I think they might have a chance to win the division. I think the Caps are going to be a little quicker. They're going to play a little quicker under Carberry. And I think that massive speed disadvantage is not going to be as pronounced next year. I'll go 2-2.
All right. So my final question is, I know you already touched on this a little bit more, but I was hoping you could go into a tad bit more detail. You obviously work for TNT, and also you do some stuff with NHL Network. So I got to ask you, as an analyst, like, what do the Devils need to do in order to become Stanley Cup contenders? Because a lot of people say it's the goaltending. Some people say it's the experience. Some people say they're just not ready for the time being. So Tarik, you as an analysis, where would you say the Devils are at in terms of that development? Like, maybe you could compare them to that Capitals team that won in 2018.
Yeah, I don't know. So the Capitals, in my opinion, when they won in 2018, that was a weird season where things didn't go right several times. I mean, they almost fired Barry Trotz like twice during the regular season before winning the Stanley Cup. They went down 0-2 in the first round to Columbus, right? I mean, like that was not fluky. Building for years. I still think the Devils are on the front end of their window. Like the Capitals won when their window was like as wide open as it was going to be, and maybe even coming down a little bit, right? That should have been, in my opinion, that should have been their second Stanley Cup. They had better teams in previous years, but they kept running into Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, right? But I mean, that really should have been their second championship. For me, experience matters so much. It just matters so much. I mean, the goaltending is a big deal. Don't get me wrong. I think that Vitek is a solid goaltender until he does it in the playoffs. I'm always going to have questions. I think a lot of people are going to have questions. It is a different game when you get there. That said, I'm going to go experience. And I think. What's their average age? Probably 27-ish.
They're one of the youngest teams in the NHL.
Youngest,
yeah. So I was actually looking at this last night on Elite Prospects. So when you look at some of the youngest teams in the NHL, you see the Senators, you see the Sabres, you see the Blue Jackets, you see like the Ducks, the Coyotes, and all those teams I just listed are not playoff teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I think experience. I'm going to go with experience. I was talking to someone the other day, not for an interview. We were just chatting, and I said, I feel like someone's going to come out of nowhere this year to win the Stanley Cup. It just feels like one of those years. Everyone is going, oh, it's finally Toronto's turn. Oh, it's finally Connor McDavid's turn. I think someone's going to come out of nowhere this year and win it. And it could be a team like the Devils. It really could be. But I don't know. I think that I really do want to see more from the goaltending, and those Stars got to take that next step. They got to take that next step. But I mean, the Devils, like I said, their window is now wide open. From here for the next 6 or 7 years, this team should be in the playoffs every year with a good seed, and people should be talking about them. The team had a chance to make a run.
Well, yeah, with Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, Dougie Hamilton, Andre Palat, a few others signed for the next few seasons. I think that is the plan, to try to get back to the playoffs. And once again, Fitzgerald did a good job of retaining some key assets and replacing the assets he lost. So like Ryan Graves and Damon Severson, they're going to be replaced by Luke Hughes and Colin Miller, or Miles Wood is going to be replaced by Curtis Lazar or Tomas Nosek, because Nosek also likes to play somewhat of a physical game. And then you replace or you upgrade from Sharon Govich to Foley and also to Tar. So I think I think Fitzgerald knows what the plan is. He knows what the assignment is, which is get back to the playoffs more consistently. So Tarik, we talked about everything, Capitals, Devils. Any closing remarks, and also throw in a few of your plugs? Where can my audience find you?
Closing remarks. I'm sad to say beach season has come to an end, but I can't tell you how excited I am. I mean, I've actually the past 24 hours, I've just started getting totally immersed in all the preview sections. I'm starting to catch up on everything that's being written around the league. This is my 19th season covering the NHL, 20th season covering the NHL. And I always go through that kind of period of mourning where it's like, oh, no more trips to the beach, no more mountain bike rides, the golf clubs go away a little bit. But then that only lasts a few minutes. And then it's like, all right, now it's hockey season time. And I'm starting to get this is the first preview interview I've done of the new season. I'm starting to get excited. The rookies are going to be showing up here in town here in the next couple of days, going to be on the ice over the weekend, and we're off 100 miles an hour to the finish line. I mean, people can find my work at The Athletic. They can also find me on TNT, where I'm on on the TNT broadcast as a sideline reporter, and I jump on NHL Network to talk about the Caps whenever something big happens. So I'm also on Twitter. You can find me everywhere.
So make sure you check out Tarik on your television stations on NHL Network and TNT, and check out some of his fantastic writing. Tarik, the pleasure is always mine, my friend. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, Trey, thanks for having me. Give me a call anytime, man.